I want to set the tone for this. Jonathan, if you could tell me when I have like 10 minutes left or something, because time will go out of my head. I want to set the tone for this. The major thing I want to get across to you today is that if you haven't been in the industry for a while, and maybe even if you have, but you haven't worked at a lot of different companies or been to a lot of conferences, you might think that there's a council of elders that controls who is called a testing expert, who is recognized and who isn't, who gets to have a career and notoriety and excitement as a consulting software tester. But there's no such thing. It's a completely open society, and I love that. And I want to help you understand how that open society works to some degree, so that if you choose to, you can have a career, if you like, a career path that extends into being a consulting software tester, which is what I am. Now, you can't make that much money as a software tester compared to some other fields. The most I ever made was $35,000 a week for 12 weeks. And I was very depressed. I was depressed. I actually was depressed thinking about it after 8 weeks, looking at the pile of money, the little pieces of money sticking out from under the lid of the box, and as I was trying to push it down, I was actually depressed because I realized I'm never going to make this much money again. This is a complete fluke. And so far I haven't, but, you know, I'm still alive. But it was just amazing that it could happen at all. Now, this was on the Microsoft antitrust case, and I'm gonna read you a part of a little story from the Wall Street Journal that talks about what happened to me on that project, which is the first time I've ever spoken publicly about that incident. But first, I want to set the tone with a little video that some of you may have seen. I put it up on the YouTubes. It's a couple of minutes from a movie called The Towering Inferno, starring Steve McQueen. And in it, Steve McQueen is a fire captain who is trying to put out the fire in this large skyscraper. And it always impressed me as he's an expert. That's the kind of attitude I want to have. So I took the liberty of subtitling it. So you're going to see this scene now, assuming the sound plays, which I hope and believe that it will. You're going to see this scene, and the actors will be saying things, but I've put subtitles under that you have to read. They come kind of fast. You don't have to read all of them. But the subtitles say what's really going on from a tester's point of view, a Buccaneer tester's point of view. Let's see if this works. And I'm not hearing any sound, not even on my own system. So let me, oh, is that because I have to do this? Oh. Okay, I have to back it up again. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. Responding to second.
Get some hands over here and walk out there. Hey, yeah. You understand I want you over that way? Mike, she's throwing a lot of smoke.
81st floor, right?
Right. We've got lobby control. Second alarm is in. Set up a forward command.
Got it.
Chief? This is Roberts, the architect.
What do we got here, Cappy?
Fire started, 81st floor, storage room. This is a bad one. Smoke is so thick we can't tell how far it spread.
What about your exhaust system?
Well, it should have reversed automatically. It must have been a motor burnout or something. Sprinklers, they're not working on 81.
Why not?
I don't know.
Jim.
Yes, sir.
All right. give us a quick refresher on your standpipe system.
Well, we got outlets on every floor, about 3 and 1.5 inch.
GPM?
1,500 from ground to 68, 1,000 from 68 to 100, and 500 from there to the roof.
All right, you sure these elevators are programmed for emergency service?
These two are.
What floor do you keep your plans on?
79, my office.
That's good. That's 2 floors below the fire. All right, that'll be our forward command. All right, men, take up the equipment. Right, let's go.
Okay. Architects. Yeah, it's all our fault. Now, you know there's no sure way for us to fight a fire at anything over the 7th floor. But you guys just keep building them as high as you can. Hey, are you here to take me on or the fire?
Okay, well, what about the 81st floor? You got everybody out of there?
I want to see all your floor plan, 81 through 85. Gotcha. This is what I'm worried about. All those beams and that glass. They're coming straight.
Chief,
Yeah.
81 has been evacuated, but it doesn't look too good up there.
How long before you can give me a complete list of your tenants?
Oh, you don't have to worry about that. We're moving them out right now.
Not live-in, business tenants.
Well, we kind of looked up there, too. The majority of them haven't moved in yet, and those that have aren't working tonight.
I want to know who they are, not where they are.
Now, what does that got to do with anything, who they are?
Do you have any wool or silk manufacturers? You see, in a fire, wool and silk give off cyanide gas. Do you have any sporting good manufacturers, like table tennis balls? They give off toxic gases. Now, do you want me to keep going down the line?
No. One list of tenants coming right up.
Thank you. Over here and here. What do we got?
Well, elevator bank central core. Service elevators over here. Air conditioning duct 6 inch.
Pipe alleys here?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This is south.
South.
Have you got any construction going up in 81?
Nope.
Anything that could blow up, like gasoline, kerosene, fabric cleaner?
I don't think so.
Good, I'll be up in 81. Okay. For what it's worth, architect, this is one building that I figured wouldn't burn.
Neither did I. And they're celebrating. Party.
Party? What party? Where?
In the promenade room, 300 people.
Well, why didn't you get them the hell out of there?
Why don't you go on upstairs and talk to Duncan? He ain't exactly listening to me.
I will.
See, when I was like 12 years old, I saw that. No, I would have been 10. I saw that, and I thought, Steve McQueen, he's so cool. He's an intellectual. He's a cool intellectual. Cuts through nonsense, knows what to do. Everyone else is confused. We don't know where to start testing. I can tell you. And maybe he doesn't know either, but he's going to make a decision. He's going to take a gamble that's just crazy enough to win this war. Okay? So I thought, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. That is kind of the attitude I take when I'm talking about a Buccaneer tester. What I'm saying is, whatever the convention seems to be to other people, where's my presentation? It disappeared. How about if I bring that up again? Presentation, where is it? Okay. Pardon our dust while we fix problems. Buccaneer tester, loading. Come on, quality, hold together. There we go. It would be so cool if it crashed right then. Because you know right now, Microsoft lawyers, because they just found out through all their listening systems that I'm going to talk about the Microsoft antitrust case. They're trying to find the button that disables my computer. James Marcus Bach is my Twitter address, by the way, in case that matters. What was I saying? Oh, you see, however there might seem to be official ways of doing things, conventions. Perhaps you might feel that there are ancient manuals of correct testing. Sometimes I think managers must think that there's an ancient, some kind of like Book of the Dead found in Egyptian tombs, that's all about how do you estimate how long testing is going to take, and that testers, if testers would just read what the ancient ones have to say, they would find the magical formula that would just tell us the answer to these things. And we may feel that maybe we're the only ones in our little company, we're the only ones who don't know that magical formula, that don't know the official correct way to calculate the number of test cases required to do the project. Well, none of that stuff exists. People have written articles about it. The articles are baloney. They don't work. There's all kinds of speculation about how we might decide how long testing might take. It's all kinds of speculation based on a bunch of different assumptions about how many test cases in this or that situation might be required to do such and such. But it's all based on very parochial, specific assumptions, some of which are stated, some of which are hidden. So what I'm saying is that if you want to test really well, what you've got to do is you need to educate yourself, and you need to educate yourself by ferreting out not the final answers to problems, but you've got to ferret out the underlying dynamics, the underlying principles. You need to listen to what someone says is a best practice and deconstruct it, and understand, how did they come to say that? Why are they saying that? Why are they ignoring these other practices over here? And I'm saying that that is a process which is akin to buccaneering. And when I say buccaneering, I'm speaking of the buccaneers of the Spanish Main, the pirates. They called themselves buccaneers during about 1625 to 1700. The majority of them would have said, we're not pirates. We're buccaneers. We're not pirates. We're freedom fighters. We're adventurers. We're striking back against the hated Spanish armadas. The treasure fleets go by, and sure, we take their gold if we can. After all, they stole it from somebody else up the road. These people were a fascinating society. They had a code of honor, code of conduct. They had many different skills. They were all alone. The different nations of the world would ask them for help in fighting various marine wars. But just as quickly, they could be cut off and blamed for everyone's trouble, just like the consulting software tester. I've seen this many times on projects. So what the Buccaneers did is they innovated. They innovated in the design of the ships. They would steal ships and then modify them to make them faster. They'd think of tricksy ways to trick warships into giving up or to being in a false sense of security before they'd jump on them after dark and enslave them all. And so they weren't just robbers. They were resourceful people who operated outside of any concept of convention except the conventions that they made for themselves. And when I first read about these guys in depth years ago, I thought, I feel like that. I feel a kinship with that, personally. Initially because I didn't have any formal education to speak of. I didn't have any institutionalized education. So I felt like an outsider. I felt like I had to roll my own ideas. But later on I found out, even people with institutional educations, you guys are stuck. I bet there's a lot of you here with university degrees. But I'll bet very few of you have a university degree in software testing. I'll bet nobody has an undergraduate degree in software testing. And if there's anyone here who has a master's or a doctorate in software testing, there sure aren't many of you. Actually, would anyone say that they had a master's degree in software testing? Anybody here? Okay, so that's a zero. Nobody. You know what that means? That means that we're all coming at this from some odd angle, not what would someone from the outside might think of as the obvious angle. Well, of course, you were trained by the elders in testing and apprenticed to them before you were allowed to be a journeyman tester and then become a master tester by yourself. Isn't that how it works? Instead, we're inventing the craft for ourselves. I put this on my blog once. I said, I reinvented the testing craft for myself in 1990 or so. I started as a tester in 87. And one of my rivals wrote on his blog, "Oh, James Bach just said he invented testing. What an insane guy. He's like the Al Gore saying he invented the internet. What? He's nuts." Okay, well, that's not really what I said. I reinvented testing for myself. I said, instead of just accepting and believing anything I'm told by someone who writes a book, maybe I'm going to think critically about each one of those things and say, is that really true? Is that really a good way to think about it? So I reinvented testing the way someone who wants to be a car enthusiast might take apart his car and put it back together again, and in the process, invent a few new parts. That's what I meant. And that's a buccaneering attitude. It's an attitude that says, there's no Navy that's going to come and save me. It's all me and my band of friends against whatever else is out there. This attitude has enabled me to establish a reputation as an expert tester. But there's nothing in what I'm doing that is unique to me. Anybody can do the kinds of things that I'm doing. So I want to offer you now something that might help you in your career path. I hope as I do this that you will think about what makes you unique. What mix of talents and interests and passions do you have, each of you, that mix that maybe no one else has? So there are some programmers in the audience, I'm sure, people who do programming as well as testing, or people who do testing and know how to program, okay? So that's one element. Maybe another element is that you have the ability to write. Maybe some of you are good at mathematics. Maybe you like certain kinds of technologies. Maybe some of you are interested in cloud computing and are getting into that. It's all kinds of stuff out there, all kinds of different elements of what makes a tester excellent. You need to take stock of this in yourselves and then find a story about you, a narrative that explains who you are, that makes you important and special. And you might say, oh, but James, I'm not an egotist like you, so I'm happy to be a humble tester who doesn't ever put his head above anyone else and doesn't ever say I'm unique in any way. And that's okay, but you will never have job security with that attitude, I'm afraid, because have you noticed all the outsourcing going on? The outsourcing, the offshoring, you know why that's happening? It's because the managers think that you are completely interchangeable with somebody they've never heard of before who's 8,000 miles further away from them than you are. They think, oh, it doesn't matter. Just, we could have you test or you test. It doesn't matter. What matters is the little document with the instructions on it called the test case. That's the important thing. We must lay wreaths at the feet of the test cases. Once we have those, we can take the tester, just like in one of those Bond movies where the scientist works for the evil one, and then he says, finally, I have finished your atomic death ray bubble gum. And the bad guy says, you have done well. And then winks, and then the big guys come in and drag the scientist away who's going, no, that wasn't part of the deal, right? So if you're creating test cases and you think the test cases are the point, you are working yourself out of a job. So, congratulations. Welcome to the food services industry. That will be your next stop. Well, let me get into this. Project experiences, writing, teaching, speaking, innovating, having a vision of the craft, even if it is uncomfortable at times for other people to hear your vision of the testing craft. I live for the day when we will all wear armadillo hats. Studying, all these things do two things for you. They help you develop yourself as a tester, but they simultaneously help you develop your reputation as a tester, unless, as they are currently doing at Infosys, you're so secretive about what you're doing to help your testers develop that no one outside of Infosys even knows all this wonderful training stuff that you're doing with your testers. I'm working with Infosys on that right now, but I was amazed. I talked to Aparna Sharma. She just, for some reason, some publicist called me and said, "You want to talk to Aparna Sharma? She's the manager of 7,000 testers." I'm like, okay, whatever. If she's willing to face the tough questions. This ain't no Larry King. And so I said, I want to ask her about how she makes sure that her testers are expert testers. What's their internal training? And I don't want to hear just like, check the box, yes, we have internal training, but it's proprietary. We can't tell you anything about it. I want details. So she showed up on the phone call, and she had lots of details. I was really impressed. But then I'm like, how come, why is this like confidential? Why isn't this all over your website? Why do I only know one tester at Infosys? I know one tester, Meeta Prakash at Infosys. She is the only tester at Infosys that has a public reputation as far as I know so far. But if I don't know, how public the reputation can it be? I'm obsessed with this stuff, constantly talking to people about testing day and night. So I'm trying to wake Infosys up, and Aparna has been very receptive to this, to the idea that, hey, maybe all this internal stuff you're doing, maybe you can be more open about it. Maybe you could get some benefit by showing off some of these self-educating testers that you have that are so good, and that becomes a benefit to them. It becomes a benefit to Infosys. I think all the test labs should be doing that. I'm amazed that more test labs aren't doing this. CoreDev is doing it. They have my brother, and they support him in coming to these conferences. I have dinner with my brother all the time because CoreDev buys. I like that. Expenses it to them. They support him doing this stuff. So you earn your reputation as long as you're not secretive about it. At the same time, you're doing all these self-development activities like teaching, writing, speaking, innovating. These are all things. And these are all optional, though. You don't have to do either of these things. You can have a long career in testing without studying testing, without innovating. You can say, well, I just do my job, and I don't make too many waves, and I don't try to turn people's worlds upside down or say audacious things about testing. Lots and lots of people have jobs in testing doing that. I would just argue that those jobs that they have are not safe. Making yourself unremarkable does not make you safe in this world, the modern economy that we have. In this economy, what I'm going to talk about in terms of Buccaneers may be relevant to you, especially in this economy. Now, I already know that I'm dealing with a sample bias issue here because you all came to a conference. You're already in a minority, a really small minority of testers at large. You went to your managers and said, I want to go to this conference. Or when your manager said, I'm going to send you this conference, you didn't say, no, I won't go. And those of you who went only to go to Universal Studios, they're not here right now, okay? So, unless you're thinking, I want to see James Bach, and then it's Universal Studios for me. Here's what my definition of a Buccaneer scholar is. A Buccaneer scholar is anyone whose love of learning is not muzzled, yoked, or shackled by any institution or authority, whose mind is driven to wander and find its own voice and place in the world. I have a little slide here. It's a little hard to see the little text. That's okay. I'm going to read some of it to you. It's three big elements. You live free, you hunt ideas, you win your place in the world of thinkers. By living free, I mean you seek firsthand knowledge. Maybe you've heard that boundary testing is a good way to find bugs. So what you might do is say, let's test that assertion. Let me see for myself. Let me see what would be the opposite of boundary testing. Let me get together with some friends over lunch and let's try a little testing challenge. And we'll test that assertion. Self-directed learning means that you wander around bookstores or you Google things or you wander around conferences like this and you think, what would be fun for me to learn now? What do I need to know? What problems am I trying to solve? Instead of saying, what's the official syllabus that I must follow, that the ancient ones have decreed is the case. We hunt ideas. For the Buccaneering personality, we are driven by curiosity. I wonder what would happen if we tried this. And a lot of things we try don't work out very well. But boy, you give me a puzzle, and I hope somebody does this. I love brain teasers, puzzles. I'm constantly looking for testing brain teasers and puzzles. If you give me a puzzle, it's now I must solve it. If I'm fooled, if I'm stumped by it, that's exciting because that's going to mean I'm going to learn something. I'll learn something important if you're able to stump me with a puzzle. And if I solve the puzzle, then I go, ha, that's great too. But that's motivating for me, the hunt for solutions in an open-ended space. So you can already tell that when I think of testing, I don't think of testing as doing the same regression test 900 times. You know what? If you give me the same test to do 15 times, first of all, I'll analyze it to find out why it is that you think it needs to be done 15 times in a row, or 15 different builds. And if it really needs to be done the same way, then I'm going to do it samer than anyone has ever done before. I'll invent a sameness jig. Look at that. He has invented a special glove that forces his finger down on the same keys in the same way. He's samer than anyone. What a man. If it doesn't have to be the same, if it just has to be approximately the same, I'm going to put all kinds of variation in it. It's going to be more variable than anyone's done it before. Or maybe not, but that's going to be my attitude. My attitude is whatever goodness is, how can I turn this into a puzzle? Even if you give me a drudge work, I'm going to turn it into an interesting puzzle that I will solve. My brother showed me how to do this, Jonathan. He used to work as a dishwasher at a country club, and I knew there was a great future in store for him. He had actually gone from book author to dishwasher. That was his arc. I'm a high school dropout. My brother has a degree in journalism, and he got his degree in journalism. His postgraduate work was living on my couch when I worked at Apple, and then he wrote a book, and then his next stop was a book tour, and then I guess the last stop was the washing dishes at the country club near Seattle, and he would come home. He would come back from work. I'd meet with him. And he'd talk about how he'd figured out an optimal way of washing dishes and how he's redesigned the process of dishwashing. And then he worked at a bookstore, and he found inefficiencies in the bookstore, and he was trying to fix them, but the corporate bigwigs wouldn't let him. And because at Barnes & Noble, they make you put books in certain places, and it's all controlled from New York. No private initiative. So I said, man, come be a tester. And he said, I can't do that. Me? I'm not one of them programmers. You don't need to be. And he became a tester, and he's been a tester ever since. He won his reputation quickly at Microsoft. My brother's worked at Microsoft 3 different times. He's left 3 different times. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't hire him again, though. The culture has changed at Microsoft because he's not a programmer. So what he is a consulting software tester working at CoreDev. So we live free, we hunt ideas, we win our place in the world of thinkers. I don't seek to be respected by you because I can say, look at my high school diploma. Look. You have to accept me into this country club. No, that's not, I don't have one. Okay, I have an 8th grade diploma, is the latest one that I got. And then I went 2 more years of undistinguished academic career before I gave up on that. But no one has ever asked for it. I don't seek respect on that basis. I seek respect on the basis of merit. So let me give you an interesting data point with that. This is what I've never spoken about in public before. This is a story from the Wall Street Journal, May 10th, 2002, about me. Under pressure from Microsoft Corp., the 9 states pursuing the company's renewed antitrust trial dropped a last-minute witness they had hoped to call to press their case for tough business restrictions. Okay. Microsoft attorneys had argued strenuously that it was too late in the game for the states to present rebuttal testimony by James Bach, a software expert. Yes! I had only asked to be a software testing expert, but the Wall Street Journal promoted me to software expert. In other stories, I was called a computer expert. That was cool. A computer programming expert. I wanted someone to call me an operating systems expert, but I don't think anyone did. The states announced Sunday night that they would call Mr. Bach to show how to build custom versions of the Windows operating system. Whoa! And I was going to do it. Based on a few weeks of preparation, I was going to show how to build custom versions of the Windows operating system. Okay? And the judge expressed displeasure, appearing visibly angered by the state's 11th hour complications. Let's see. The trial had been headed for a final showdown over a previously little-known product called Windows XP Embedded, which allows programmers to build customized operating systems for small devices. Okay? What I did is I took Windows XP Embedded, a product Microsoft shipped, and I showed that you could build a desktop version of Windows XP with it. And I could do that because Windows XP Embedded includes every single file that is in Windows XP. So obviously, we would be able to build a version of Windows XP out of Windows XP Embedded. My bold, crazy theory turned out to be correct. And I was able to do it. I was able to show a video of us playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, Microsoft Word, Office, OpenOffice, Excel. Bill Gates testified under oath that it was impossible to do this, and you wouldn't even be able to install software on such a platform, and I installed software on such a platform, and I have it on video. It was all there. My testimony got dropped because of this. Let me scroll down. Just after lunch break yesterday, Stephen Hawley, an attorney from Microsoft, fired a verbal salvo. He said the state's lawyer had delivered 67 CD-ROMs, or roughly the equivalent of 36,400-page books, in response to requests for information about Mr. Bach. The 67 CDs they're referring to are almost duplicates of each other. Okay? All what they did is they took a cardboard box which had my backups in it of my reports, my earlier version of my reports and test data and test protocol, and they just gave them all to Microsoft. Our lawyers just dumped them into a box and gave them all to Microsoft. And Microsoft decided to say, oh, look, 67 unique and different CD-ROMs. Not saying they were all supposed to be thrown away. There's nothing on them that we even need to worry about. I delivered a computer with the operating system that we had built from Microsoft's own product and tested with Microsoft's own stress tests that they tell you should use if you want to know if an operating system is stable. So I used their very own stuff, okay? And they complained to the judge that I didn't give them a power cord. And the funny thing was, just before we sent them the computer, I took the power cord away because I thought, I'll just tweak whatever low-level guy is putting this together. He'll say, there's no power cord, and he'll have to pull a power cord from another computer. That'll be funny. And they came up in court the next day. Your Honor, I beseech you, this is an outrage. Without power, no computer can operate. Who knows what this man has done? If you read the transcripts were public, and what these guys said in court about my stuff, Your Honor, it's not even a matter of days or weeks. It will take months to figure out what this diabolical man has done. This so-called expert. The problem with them calling me a so-called expert, by the way, which they actually said it was like so-called expert, was that they had put a press release out a couple years before saying I was an expert and I helped them with something. So we had a Microsoft a press release to contradict them. We're not talking a matter of hours or even a couple of days. Now, the reason why I brought this up here is not to say, look at me, I'm so cool. Here's how it relates to you. Here's how it relates to you. What I'm saying is that when the states approached me and said, it's interesting that Microsoft says that they can't create a version of Windows that doesn't have Internet Explorer in it because we found this thing called Windows XP Embedded, and you look at it, and on the surface, it sure seems to be able to take away Windows Internet Explorer. So can you look at this and see, is this really true? What this apparently is doing seems to contradict what Microsoft says is possible. So can you just look at this and see what you can do? And what I said was, interesting, most intriguing puzzle. I certainly don't know if I can do this or not, but I'll give it a whirl. And then it turned out using only non-confidential information and good old intellectual sweat work and gumption, we were able to do this, and we constructed a procedure by which we could create a version of Windows XP that is functionally identical, and then we ran Microsoft's own published stress tests that they give to device manufacturers to test their device drivers to see that their device drivers don't destabilize your operating system. We ran those very stress tests that Microsoft tells you to run. And they say if they run for 48 hours and you don't crash, that means the operating system is stable. It worked. And we did some other things too. And we verified that we had removed all the DLLs associated with this stuff, the offending material. Okay? So what I was willing to do is say, I'll try it. I'll try it. I'll plunge in and we'll see. No promises, but I'll plunge in and we'll see. And it turned out that this analysis wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And then I was willing to go into a high-pressure situation with that and do depositions, and that's very scary. But I was willing to put my work out there and do that, and it was exciting. It was tremendously exciting. It was very depressing that nothing ever came of it, except that I got paid all that money. But the idea of let's try that, instead of saying, well, it probably will take months to test an operating system, so I'm not even going to try. That's the attitude of the testing Buccaneer. We don't have instructions for how to do things, but it's okay. We may not succeed, but we're willing to try to create a new path and see if we can make things work. And we have many resources. That's what Buccaneers do. We develop many resources to help us do that sort of thing. I have a system of learning that I developed for myself over the last 25 years, and I wrote about in my book about self-education. And it boils down to these elements. I obsessively scout. You know, one of the reasons why I knew about the stress test program that Microsoft's own company produced to help tell you that an operating system is stable, it's because I was scouting one day. I looked to see everything that was in the MSDN Universal subscription, and then I just found this thing. It was just sitting there. And I thought, that will come in very handy in testing this operating system. I look through resource kits. I look online and I find tools and materials, and I think, I'll keep that in mind for later. Obsessive scouting. I'm going to mention a couple of other things. Authentic problems means I focus only on problems I care about and not on problems that I'm supposed to care about. Knowledge attracts knowledge means that the more I learn about lots of different things, the easier it is to learn about new things. It's kind of like learning a language that way. Disposable time means that I create time periods for myself where I'm not expected to produce anything. Time that is okay for me to waste. It's not that I seek to waste it, but I know it's okay to waste it. I've got a bunch of things here. Then I've got these learning heuristics, cyclic learning, principles of alternation. I'll talk about the principle of alternation. The principle of alternation says that if you want to learn something fast and thoroughly, and it's very confusing and difficult, like say you want to study a patent. Patents are really hard to read. They're the hardest kinds of specifications to read. Oh my God, I'd rather read the penal code than read a patent. But what I discovered is reading a patent is a lot easier if you have the invention next to you that the patent is talking about. Because what you do is you read the patent until you get sleepy, and then you stop, and you go to another activity like looking at the invention and playing with it. And then when you go back to read the patent, your brain is able to see things it couldn't see before, and you're not sleepy anymore. And you go back and forth, read, play, read, play, read, play. I'll bet you do this in testing all the time. You read some spec, and then you play with the product, and you read some spec, and you play with the product. I call that the principle of alternation. It helps you move more quickly than if you said, I'm going to read the entire thing before I ever touch the product. There are some people who feel that they shouldn't start testing until they read everything there is, and then they're allowed to start testing. And I think they're slowing themselves down by doing that. So I do things like obsess and forget. I'll obsess about something for a while. I'll learn a certain kind of mathematics or something, and then I'll just forget about it. I'll put it out of my mind and let it sit for months, and then come back to it later because I get curious again and just relearn it. Obsessing and forgetting. And my theory is that this process of obsessing about things and then forgetting about them helps me be better at identifying potential solutions whenever problems come up. That's my theory. I think it's worked for me. One thing I don't do is worry about forgetting things that I have learned in the past. I let go long ago of all that worry. So I don't have a method of learning that says, here's my destination, and I'm going to go directly and efficiently to that destination, and I'm going to find a college professor who's already knows exactly what I need to do. That's not and has never been my attitude. If it's your attitude, that's okay. I'm just encouraging you to think that you can add something to that attitude. I don't have that attitude. I can't benefit from it. I'm allergic to it. But maybe you can do well with classroom training and all that. And that's okay. I'm not putting that down. I'm saying that you have an advantage over me in that you could benefit from classroom training, whereas I will disrupt it. If I'm in a classroom, I will disrupt the classroom. And so I know I shouldn't be there if I have any kind of sympathy or empathy for the poor guy teaching the class. But if you can do that, that's fine. But in addition to that, there's some other things you can also do that I do, like this. I learned about simulated annealing, which is all about a mathematically based method of exploratory testing. I stumbled into it one day by starting with space-filling curves, Sierpinski space-filling curves. Oh yeah, the good ones. And then that took me to L systems and Penrose tiles, which I started having ideas about random testing from that. And then that went to the traveling salesman problem, physics applets that I found online, and next to the traveling salesman, or next to the thing on diffusion limited aggregation, I found the simulated annealing thing. And you see, I can use these words now, and you're going like, whoa. And there's a little part of you, for some of you, that's intimidated by what I'm saying. Excellent. But there are those of you who are Buccaneers in the audience who are going like, it's probably fake. He's probably just throwing words around. Because Buccaneers know that it's easy to say a word. Anyone can say a word. Is there really substance behind it? Can he walk the talk? Can he turn it on, turn it off? Can he walk the walk? It took me 4 hours about 18 months ago to go through this process of investigation, and then I discovered simulated annealing, which turned out to be a scientific-based argument supporting exploratory testing efficiency. I can argue that exploratory testing is a highly efficient way of testing because I learned about simulated annealing. So the next person who comes along saying exploratory testing is so inefficient will have to face the bear, because I'll show them this video and say, have you heard about the good news about simulated annealing, which is an exploratory process of finding the most efficient solution to a problem. And the dynamics of simulated annealing are useful in talking about how we do ordinary human exploratory testing. Okay, so there's this thing called The Prince by Machiavelli. Look at this. Nothing makes a prince so well thought of as to undertake great enterprises and give striking proofs of his capacity. This is what you need to do if you are going to become, develop your career as a tester. Buccaneers of America, here's this particular guy named Roche Brasilio. Look what it says about him. This action got him a great reputation at home, and though in his private affairs he governed himself very well, he would oftentimes appear brutal and foolish when in drink, running up and down the streets, beating or wounding those he met, no person daring to make any resistance. I saw that, and I said, I'm a lot like that, actually. I do have a reputation for being unruly, and so there's some of you out there who have the heart of a buccaneer who might be actually much better at being friendly and charming than I am. And so you can take over a market niche that I can't touch because I'm just not good at that. I'm good at being argumentative, combative, audacious. I know that, and so that's what that's my brand. And I just try to do that very well. And I really appreciate people who are more soft-spoken and moderate and balanced. I do, however, I don't drink. So that part doesn't fit me. I'm like that sober. Okay. Recently there was a testing flash mob. Matt Heuser put a testing challenge out. A bunch of us, about a dozen of us on Twitter noticed it, and we started giving each other challenges. It was a lot of fun, very public. And in the end, I hold the record as being charged the most for parking at the Ronald Reagan Airport. I beat my brother's record by $1, and we've been trying to figure out how to get a little bit higher. We think we can go $18 or $17 higher, and we're still puzzled about why we are unable to do that. So if you want to try it yourself, I can also give you, Adam Goucher has put a version of this online that he controls on his own server. I can give you some source code to it. This is like the key slide right here. We've got to win credibility in the craft if we want to have people knocking on our doors saying, please let me hire you, please let me hire you, please let me give you money. You need reputation to have credibility. Reputation is stories told about you. You need a portfolio, that's examples of your work. And you need to be able to perform on demand, live demos of your ability. This is the key triad: reputation, portfolio, and performance. I had to hire a tester recently. This is snippets from their resumes. None of these three testers who sent their resumes had any public portfolio. I Googled each one. I couldn't find out anything about them. Apparently, they were not active on the forums at all. So you know what? I had to just look at their resume. That's all I had to go on. So I looked at this one guy. He says, 7 years of extensive experience in complete software development lifecycle. He bombed out because I asked him a question about how he would test a certain requirement, and his answer seemed dull, lifeless, devoid of analysis. He was just doing a linguistic transformation of the requirement, and then he felt he was done. I'm like, okay, no thanks. This other guy put a whole list of buzzwords on his CV. Mutation testing, ad hoc testing. So I asked him to tell me, what are those? Explain to me what mutation testing is. So he said mutation testing is testing something after it's been changed, which actually is regression testing, conventionally speaking. So I think he was confusing regression testing and mutation testing. I'm pretty sure he just got a book and just wrote this stuff, just poured this stuff in and thinking no one's going to question me. This is too intimidating. Then I went to the third person who had nothing about software testing in his resume. I asked him my question about requirements, and he gave me an interesting, exploratory, analytical response. He asked me questions. We ended up hiring him. He had been an electrical engineer for 25 years and had done hardware testing, but had never done software testing, but he had the right kind of brain. In other words, he established in the interview an instant reputation for thinking. But I'm wondering about all three of these guys. Why are they trusting to a couple of pages of a resume what their whole careers? I mean, what they should be active in the community if they want potential employers to understand who they are and what they can contribute. They should have examples of their work online. Don't go into a job search situation trying to minimize the amount of information that people have about you. Okay, I have very little time left. Isn't that right, John? Okay, so how do you win your public reputation? Don't act like a commodity, please. Don't be interchangeable. So you got to do things like write blogs, test open source software. That could be a powerful thing. There are various companies, increasing number of companies, who hold public testing events like you test, and then they offer awards to testers who find the most interesting bug, that kind of thing. That can be a badge that you can wear proudly. Attending conferences and talking to people at the conferences. People come up to me and talk to me. Yesterday, a guy came up to me. I didn't know him at all. And within 10 minutes, I want to know this guy a lot more. Peter Magnuson, he's a vice president of marketing, of all things, at Conform IQ, but he used to be a programmer, or I guess he still is. And he showed us, a couple of us, his tool that does automatic test generation. And boy, this guy really knows his stuff. And we gave him some challenges, and he performed live. He took a challenge that Michael Bolton gave him, and he built a model right there, and he was showing us how his tool worked. That's impressive to have the courage to do something like that instead of saying, "Oh, I'll have my people get back to you. Please allow me to throw this smoke bomb and escape in the other direction." So I need to know about Peter Magnuson. This is a guy who thinks. Okay, he created in just a few minutes a reputation. I made a list off the top of my head. Oh, there you are, Peter. I made a list off the top of my head. I said, who are the testers that come to mind, and what's the story about that tester? I just said, who are going to be the ones that bop into my mind most quickly? And of course, there are people that I know all these people, so of course they're the ones that pop into my mind. But this was just a little experiment. Some of these people I've never worked with closely. Some of these people I haven't seen in years. But there's an example in the middle there. Anthony Marcano, I once had an argument with him online that did not go well. And then I met him in person. And in person, he's a wonderful rhetorician. He convinced me of his point in person in a way that online didn't work out at all. And so I had this stuck in my head, this idea he gave me called prospective testing. How do you test something that doesn't exist yet? By predicting how you will test it, talking to the developer about it, and then the developer makes the product better in anticipation of the test that you have told him you plan to run. I'm going to have elephants stomp on it, and then it becomes elephant-proof. Lynette Kramer, I want to say this is my last little thing because I'm out of time. I want to say something about Lynette Kramer because she did something that I thought was very courageous and has created a reputation in my mind of her. And she's beginning to be better known as a tester. She's also here at the conference. She's the redhead. I think we have one of them here. I happened to see something that Lynette wrote that had what I thought was a really bad definition of a test in it. And so I complained to her on Twitter about it. What most people do when I say, I think your work is shallow, and I think you can do a lot better. Another way to say it, what does it mean? Do you know? Have you really thought it through? What most people do when I challenge them like that, like especially people who write books and things like that, they go, well, how dare you, sir? No, I have never been so affronted. I've been in the industry 25 years. But what Lynette did is she wrote 2 blog entries, and this is a snippet of one of them, and you can get a sense of how her mind works by looking at this, okay? Notice the questions. She wrote what's called an exploratory essay, trying to question herself about what is testing anyway? Why do I say that it is what it is? Why is a test an action? What about those tests that sit in your database? Do those count? Of course they don't count. She's having an argument in her head, and she's made it public. There was a big battle in my mind over produces. What does produces mean? Does it create data, or does it produce data, or does it discover data that's already there? I look at this and I go, this is incoherent. It's incoherent, really. But what it shows is an active, passionate, earnest, testing mind. It shows someone who has a lot of talent, I believe, and a lot of a good, solid future. If someone were to speak this way in an interview with me, and when I was hiring a tester, I would say that's the kind of seeking, curious thinker that I can work with, and we can make it more coherent. Coherent is just a matter of practice. Okay, so Lynette has created a reputation for herself with me, and not just with me, but with other people. Simply by having the courage to put her crazy thoughts out there and take the risk that maybe she'll be wrong in some ways, that maybe some acerbic fellow like me will say, I don't like what you said. Okay, but she took that risk and she showed that courage, and she's getting the benefit of it, I believe, now, because there are increasing numbers of people that know Lynette and respect her. And she's a track chair here at the conference. She's an ambitious young tester. And I think there's lots and lots of people who are like her in the industry that I haven't met yet, just because they haven't started blogging, they haven't come on Twitter, they haven't put their thoughts out there to win their place in the testing world. Well, that's what I have to say. I encourage you to win your place in the testing world, and let us know what you think, and challenge the dominant paradigm. And good luck with that. It works for me. Thank you very much.
James, thanks so much.